Caribbean Telegraph. We are here standing just outside of the Big Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church in downtown Atlanta, Georgia. We'll just give you a synopsis of what this building looks like. All the way to the top, it says up there, Jesus Saves. And as we pan across, we are here to attend the 3rd annual Atlanta Marcus Garvey Symposium.
I'd like to keep in charge. Are you supposed to be late?
It is important for us to continue with continuity the legacy of Marcus Garvey's work. And along with collaboration, let us remember that he did not work in a silo. I had the honor of visiting Accra, Ghana, when I went to the burial site of W.B. Du Bois. There I saw a picture of Marcus Garvey, but I also saw a picture of Kwame Nkrumah. And it made me think about those heroes of yesteryear, go back and fetch it, that worked for our betterment, to make sure we could work collaboratively, to make sure we could work continually to tell the story about Black excellence. No matter where you're from, be it another part of the world, be it here in the United States, be it from Louisiana like me, be it from Georgia, be it from Connecticut, be it from California, wherever you are from, you are here now and you're in the right place. A place that advances Blackness, a place that celebrates Blackness, and a place where you are always welcome. Welcome to Big Bethel AME Church, the City Hall on Sweet Auburn that will always be open for you. God bless you, God keep you, and thank you for being with us this evening.
Teach us true respect for all, stir response to duty's call, strengthen us the weak to cherish, give us a vision lest we perish, knowledge send us, Heavenly Father, grant true wisdom from above, justice, truth, being always forever, Jamaica, land we love, Jamaica, 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 land we love.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and give a big round of applause for Professor Stephen Golding, who kept this going. It's not easy to work long distance, so could you rise and give him what's due to him, being consistent and keeping this very important initiative going. Thank you, Professor Stephen, we appreciate you. It is very important for me to stay connected to my community. Could you please note the email, which is info@JamaicanConsulateAtlanta.org. Over the past 8 fulfilling years of serving you, I am so grateful to my team that we were able to accomplish the Jamaican Pioneers Program of Georgia, the annual Jamaica Independence Church celebration, Community Passport Outreach Expo, Hurricane Melissa Relief and Build Back programs with Home Depot, Microsoft, Delta Airlines, and other organizations in Georgia. The Jamaican Consulate in Atlanta offers many complimentary services to our community: social services, visa, work permit, authentication of documents, passport, citizen, etc. On behalf of the government of Jamaica, I salute you for inviting me for this dedication to preserving this legacy. I close today by thanking all of you here in the audience who have assisted me with serving my beloved community. I am so grateful. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.
The mission of the Atlanta Jamaican Association is basically to bridge the gap between Jamaica and Atlanta. In 1977, a group of men came together and they formed this organization so that if anyone landed here, they had a place that they could identify. Some have passed on and some are still here, but the legacy that they bring still stands. Marcus Garvey was futuristic, if I say it that way. He knew what was going to come, and we ask ourselves today, why is he relevant today? Why are we here? And I sought that answer for myself. When we leave here tonight, the energy that we bring together should invigorate us to go out and be the best versions of ourselves. If you want to write a book, you want to do a podcast, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a nurse, whatever you want to be, you can, because we are human beings. And even though we were dragged across the ocean, we built this country. We built the countries that we lived in, like us Jamaicans, folks in the Caribbean. We worked as slaves, but we're the foundation for building those countries. So, as I stand here, I just ask you to open your minds and open your ears, and you will learn something today from all the other speakers. And then when we leave in that program, it says, what's next? What will you do with what you've heard and what you've learned? Thank you.
At the sound of the trump, the dead in Christ shall rise. I'm so honored to be here today to present a musical item in tribute to the legacy of Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Now you may say, Brother Julian, why do you have that hat on? Well, this is my Garveyite hat. So today I want everybody to put their Garveyite hats on, and we're going to take a brief journey. Now here, we have 1526 to 2026 is 500 years. Yet, in those 500 years, in 1926, Dr. Carter G. Woodson to establish the Negro History Week in 1926. Now, it's so beautiful for us to be here in a church today, because it is very interesting that through the transatlantic slave trade, we built churches, and through our churches, we built colleges. Because we are a righteous and noble people, and Dr. Carter G. Woodson, one of his great legacies is literature. Over me, and before I be a slave, I be free in my grave, and go home to my Lord, and be free, and be free. This time we're going to say justice. Oh, justice, come on. Oh, a round of applause. These songs are what encouraged us. Our songs of freedom are what allowed us to sing ourselves off a plantation. Our songs are what allowed us to sing ourselves out of shackles. And to be here in a church in Big Knuckle, African Methodist Episcopal Church, is so inspiring. And as I put the message with the music, you just had the movement. We talked about 1926. And on my shirt here, I have Dr. Carter G. Woodson. And it is so important that we recognize that his foundation, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, he started his in 1915, while Marcus Mosiah Garvey started his in 1914. So we see the collection of movement of black intelligence. So today is a commencement. Each one of you are soldiers. I got my boots on today because this is soldier. We are soldiers for truth, for love, for justice. Amen. And I have a few more points and I'll be right out your way if I can open my phone.
One aim, one God, one destiny. And so last year, when the African Union declared that it was the International Year of Reparatory Justice for Africans at home and abroad, it made me think of the origins of our oppression, our global oppression. And it took me right back to the church. Can you imagine? God's mercy kept me so I wouldn't let go. The God that's reflected in you and me. That when I thought about the history of global African oppression, it brought me right back into the sanctuary, living with this contradiction. In 1452, the Roman Catholic Church, with the Dum Diverses, the Papal Bulls, initiated our global African domination. They said anybody that won't pledge to be a Christian, you can enslave them, you can take their land. And to this day, 2026, they are the largest landholder globally, still to this day. And I'm not talking about the Catholics, if there are any practitioners or if Catholicism is here, that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about when the Pope goes into any country, he sits down and has a meeting with the president of that country because the Pope is an emperor. And the reason that they're the largest landholder globally is because in 1452, they began the work of building an empire. So when the African Union in 2025 declared that it was the year of reparatory justice, I had no choice but to go back home and to have this conversation in the sanctuary where it started. So in May of 2025, I went to go pick up my check. We went to the Vatican in Rome, the Pontifical Urbana University. You see, listen, I was going looking for a fight. I was angry also with myself because I'm conflicted. Thank God for the AME Church that reminds me to celebrate my African roots. But let me tell you, our organization, the Teaching Artists Institute, we work in 9 countries, 7 of which are on the continent of Africa. And the biggest picture I've ever seen of white Jesus was in Africa. So I'm thankful for the AME Church that reminded me in the diaspora, clap for yourself because you are here in the sanctuary having this conversation. This is healing in real time. And so when I go looking for a fight at the Roman Catholic Church, I'm also angry with myself because I'm wondering what is it that we are to do. I go there, I'm asking because the African Union told me, they empowered me, I'm asking for my check. I'm asking for the Black Madonnas, and I'm asking for all of the exhibitions that they had inside of the best museums. Let me tell you, the best museums in all of the world are in Europe. Not in Africa, where the artifacts were made, where the fabrics were made, but in Europe, where they're collected and stored. And of all of the European museums, the best museums are in Italy. And in all of Italy, do you know where the largest block of collected artifacts rest? In the Vatican. Name them out, the 16. You naming them. Yes, in the Vatican. It's an entire city. So I went looking for a fight to get my check, get my artifacts, and get our land. And you know who met me at the front door? Us, Black people. When I think about the Roman Catholic Church in my mind, I think of this lily white angel, because they love to paint lily white angels all over the ceiling. When you go there, you see the priests, Mary, John, everybody. They're lily white with blonde hair and blue eyes. And so I went there looking for a fight. Said, they're going to easily give me back what's mine. I'm ready, honey. And then I go there and I see us, young men from Nigeria, studying to become priests, from the Congo, from Togo, from the entire global south. As a matter of fact, when I went there, every priest that was ordained in 2025 on June 27th at the Vatican was from the global south. I had to change my tactics. I realized that the church is us. So I put on my velvet gloves. And when I put on my velvet gloves, I started to reach and have conversations. May 2025, that's African Liberation Weekend. You had to have faith to plan an event to take place at the Vatican, May 2025, because they have a schedule that's 2 years in advance. You can't even ask to have anything, to even pass out a flyer without 2 years' notice. But the African Union told us in January that the year would be about reparations.
Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever had, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. Just how long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Ooh, some say it's just a part of it, but we've got to fulfill the book. And won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever have, redemption songs. 'Cause all I ever have, redemption songs, these songs of freedom. Oh, these songs of freedom, these songs of freedom. Hey!
These ideals of racial pride, self-reliance, and global unity were powerfully amplified by Marcus Mosiah Garvey, founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, who mobilized millions throughout the African diaspora around the vision of Pan-Africa solidarity and the restoration of African dignity. And whereas Marcus Garvey's message resonated deeply within Black churches and educational institutions across the United States, including Atlanta, where he addressed the community on March 25th, 1917, at the historic Big Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church, one of the most influential spiritual and intellectual centers of the Black South. Whereas the convergence of these histories, the remembrance of the transatlantic slave trade recognized by the United Nations, the liberating witness of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, and the global vision articulated by Marcus Mosiah Garvey reflects a shared moral commitment to remembrance, justice, and the restoration of dignity to the descendants of the enslaved Africans. Now, therefore, it be resolved by the House of Representatives that a member of this body honor the life and memory of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Who knew that, right? That I am the first Jamaican born, and I'm reading this on behalf of a man I never met, but they say you plant the seeds for trees you will never see. And for that, I am truly honored. The memory of Marcus Garvey, visionary leader, global organizer, and champion of Black dignity, whose philosophy of Pan-Africa unity transformed the consciousness of people of African descent throughout the world. Be it further resolved that the clerk of the House of Representatives is authorized and directed to make an appropriate copy of the resolution available for distribution to the public and the press. So I am a little bit emotional about that because at the end of the day, I stand on these human beings' shoulders, and I could never thank them enough for what they did so I could be here today. And I did not know I was making history when I was elected, but I knew that was important, that whatever I did was going to be impactful, and I knew that I was carrying the weight, not just for myself and my family, but the fact that I had to go into this institution and say, I'm different from you. But at the end of the day, my pride and my dignity, and this island called Jamaica, no one can ever change who we are. We are proud, but not proudness to the braggness, but proud because we know who we are. And when you know who you are, no one can tell you any different.
Well, as a state representative of the people in Georgia and a candidate for governor, as my dear friend stated, I am reminded daily that leadership requires more than just policy. See, because if Marcus Garvey was here, he'd say it requires vision that restores the dignity of every citizen, especially those in the Black and brown community. See, Marcus Garvey understood that the ultimate liberation begins with the mind. He challenged a global status quo, as I do every day, with a message of unyielding self-reliance, famously stating, and here's the quote that I use as a daily affirmation. He said, if you have no confidence in yourself, you are twice defeated in the race of life. He said, however, with confidence, you have won even before you have started. See, this confidence is the bedrock of the work we do in the halls of government. It is what fuels our fight for economic equity, for the protection of our voting rights and civil rights and human rights, and for the empowerment of local small businesses. See, Garvey's mission through the UNIA was a masterclass in organizational excellence and economic independence. He taught us that our strength is rooted in our identity, as my dear friend and sister stated, and as Kim mentioned, also in our history. See, Garvey warned us, my dear brothers and sisters, that a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. So tonight, as I present this official proclamation and resolution, we acknowledge that the roots of Garvey spoke of are without sustained community today. His legacy is visible in our entrepreneurial spirit, our educational aspirations, and our collective, not individual, our collective demand for justice. For together we will stand. As we look forward to the future of our state, we must embrace his call for bold decisive action. We are not here simply to take up space. We are not a people destined for the sidelines of history. We are the architects of our own progress. Garvey's final charge remains as this urgent directive. He said, "Up, you mighty race, accomplish what you will." So in the spirit of this resolution, I present to the professor, doctor, yep, you three, come on up. Come on up. You each have a proclamation.
Voted against it was the United States of America. Which really shouldn't have happened. In fact, the resolution brought to the UN shouldn't even have been brought by a continental African country. It should have been brought by one of the countries in the diaspora where chattel slavery was carried out against our ancestors. The US voted against it regardless of the history of Africans in this country and our contribution to the greatness of America. The third country to vote against it was Argentina. And we know what they did to their African population after we taught them how to tango. But still today is a great Garvey Day. Listen, I want to thank the organizing committee. It's 3 years. I would have thought by now we would be filling some of the pews in the balcony. It's coming, Brother Sad. But we didn't even set out to get one proclamation. But by the third year, we got 3. Please give the representatives a round of applause. Again, I want to thank Big Bethel not only for hosting us, but for sheltering Marcus Garvey 109 years ago, for introducing him to a young Georgian, and allowing him to introduce that young reverend to a special woman. Because if that didn't happen, the world would have never known a Malcolm X. It happened right here. Julian said earlier the significance of 1526. Are you all aware of the significance of 1526? When the resolution was moved in the UN today, not only on the anniversary of the abolition of the slave trade by the British, not only on the anniversary of Garvey's first public lecture to Atlanta, but this year marks 500 years since the first slave ship left Africa for the Americas. This is 500 years to the date this year that chattel slavery was commercialized by Europeans. And that is what makes it the greatest crime committed against humanity. Slavery has been with us. We were not the only people to be enslaved. Even the British were enslaved by the Romans. Even the Africans enslaved the Greeks and the Armenians. You didn't know this. Slavery was a part of Africa's penal system. We never came up with a brilliant idea about building buildings to put people in for the rest of their life. That wasn't our system of punishment.
That's right.
But what our system of slavery never did was to erase the humanity of the prisoner.
That's good teaching.
And where the Europeans made it a crime is evident in the fact that they impregnated African women themselves and enslaved their own children. I don't understand what these 52 nations were thinking when they could not see this as the greatest crime ever committed against humanity. Where parents enslave their own children, can you think of a greater crime than that? That life that the universe entrusts you to protect and to bring up. But still, today's a great Garvey Day. 500 years since the first slave ship left from the west coast of Africa for Brazil. Now don't get me wrong, Africans had been brought across the Atlantic before that, as early as 1507. We know the pilot project for the plantation was led by Christopher Columbus's nephew, Don Diego Colon, who set up the first plantation where chattel slavery was enforced in 1507. But what happened on that plantation? It took them 15 years to finally murder the Europeans. They became the first Maroons, the first freedom fighters. And it is a testament to the fact that our enslavement by chattel slavery was not something we accepted at any time at all. In fact, we fought on the continent. We fought on the Atlantic Ocean. And wherever we landed, whether it was in the Caribbean or South America or North America, we continued to fight. And it makes you wonder why on the International Day of Remembrance of our Ma'afa, our Holocaust, as black people, we are not making a clarion call to the world for them to remember and never forget. Every year, Europe dons their red poppies. They speak about the blood spilt on the field of Flanders and they say never again. Their heads of state lay wreaths at memorials every year. The United States was attacked on 9/11. Every year, they read these names. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But it made me think, well, if none of those, if those things all pale in comparison to 300 years and 12 million people, well, what day does the world stop to say, remember this? Never forget. And I realize that it's our own fault. Because just the same way they abstained from the vote, they didn't say yay, they didn't say no. They kind of just want to, they know they were the victimizers. You can't expect the victimizer to want to commemorate victimizing you. So we have got to begin to make sure the world knows our story. But before we do that, we got to do what Marcus Garvey said in 1937. That's exactly what he said. He said, whilst others have freed our bodies, none but ourselves can liberate our minds. We're going to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. But where does that mental slavery come from? You know, Minister Khalid Muhammad, before he passed, made a speech once, and I never forget it. I think some hip-hop artist sampled it, but he made a speech when he said, have you forgotten that when we were brought here, we were robbed of our religion, robbed of our culture, our names.
That's right.
We lost our language. And he ended by saying, by the looks of it, some of us even lost our minds. We've had a crisis of identity throughout the entire experience of our Holocaust. And it has been reinforced by successive generations. So it's so interesting today when the UK took this position, they're not voting because they said there's no responsibility to be bared by these modern institutions, even though they have a history linked to chattel enslavement. But we, as the modern descendants of those who were victimized by chattel slavery, we got a plethora of problems and issues. It's real. Wealth creation is one of them. Mental slavery is another real one of them, and one that Marcus Garvey identified almost 100 years ago. Last month, for Black History Month, for the centennial Black History Month, 100 years since Negro History Week, right?
That's right.
We launched a campaign in the teachers' colleges in Jamaica under the concept of decolonizing the early childhood educational curriculum.
Come on now. Yeah.
Now the reason we chose early childhood is because it dawned on me some years ago that what we learn between the ages of 3 up to 7, 8, you don't even have to go as far as 10. But the things you learn in that critical early childhood period are the things you never forget. No, I'm serious. Listen, you could get Alzheimer's. You know when you learned that? Jack and Jill. You don't need to look up a book. You're not scratching your head. You don't know the last time you even said that. You probably never even said that out of your mouth for 40 years. But as soon as you hear it, you've been conditioned. And so it led us into saying, well, if these are the critical years where what you feed the mind becomes the foundation of learning, such that it will never be forgotten, then it's time we take a serious look at, well, what are we cooking? What have we been cooking and serving? What have we been feeding these minds with? And when I looked, it was abysmal. Listen to this. I said it a while ago, you know it. Baba black sheep, have you any wool? Yes, sir, yes, sir. 3 bags full. This is where it gets tricky. One for the master, one for the dame, and one for the little boy who lives down the lane. Now you paint that picture for a child. Here's some questions you're not answering, but you placed it in their mind. Who is the master? Who is the dame? And why is it, this is the sore thumb, why is it the little boy is not their son? He's obviously not their son because he don't live in the house with them. He lived down the lane. And in Jamaica, where the master, the slave master used to live, we still call them the Great House. What is down the lane from the Great House? Come on.
Same here.
And in the 21st century, you want teachers to still teach that? I mean, and I understand we are taught, this is teaching methodology, memorization is important, rhyme is important. But have we stopped to really think, what else do these British written nursery rhymes that are 300 and 400 years old almost contain that we are planting in the minds of our children? And the truth is, we have been planting the subliminal seeds of white supremacy in our own lives. Some of it don't even make sense. Check this one. London bridges falling down, falling down, falling down. London bridges. Here's the last line. What? The fairy. What? Now, London Bridge was written in 1744 when they were actually building London Bridge. And part of it did fall down. So you write this nursery rhyme, and then you give it to us, but you stick the fair lady in there. What's she got to do with the bridge? Was she on the bridge? Is she dead? Who's she? My fair lady. But when I was a child growing up in Jamaica, here are my cousins right there. We grew up right next door to each other. I remember young black girls putting towels on their head. And I'm a child of the 70s. And they would take a brush and brush the towel. Because they were subconsciously envisioning themselves having what kind of hair the fair lady had. We went wrong somewhere. Listen. Pussycat, pussycat. Where have you been? I've been to London to visit the Queen. Pussycat, pussycat, what did you there? I frightened a little mouse under her chair. Nothing wrong with that? All right, here's another one. I had a little nut tree. Nothing would it bear, right? But a silver apple, right? And a golden pear. Here's the next line. The King of Spain's daughter came to visit me, and all for the sake of my little nut tree. Well, Stephen, that's harmless, you might say, no? Because from a young age, you're introducing the concept of a queen and a king, but the kings and the queens in your nursery rhyme only come from London and Spain. England and Spain are the very two countries that colonized my island, enslaved my ancestors, and me in the 21st century must teach my children the first concept of king and queen. Remember, this is early childhood, of a king and a queen must reflect the very people who brutalized their ancestors. We're wrong. We've been wrong. In 1925, when he was locked up in the federal penitentiary right here in this city, Marcus Garvey wrote The African Fundamentalism, and in the first paragraph he ends by saying, we must inspire a literature and promulgate a doctrine of our own, without any apologies to the powers that be. The right is ours and God's. Well, have we done that? Well, me and my early childhood class at the time, we sussed it out, as we say in Jamaica. And we decided that Mother Goose is not for us. Mother Goose is not nice. Mother Goose don't have no other intention but to enslave our minds. We burn out Mother Goose. And we introduced Daddy Marcus. The back of it identifies that this is an exercise in reparation. You know how long it has taken us as a people to get on one page about reparation? Listen, I was at Johns Hopkins University in the 1990s when that we brought up the concept of reparation, and I remember the other black people in the room was looking at us like we're crazy.
That's right.
No, I'm serious. I remember it. That's why when you see what happened at the UN today and everybody, I'm like, I smile in my mind. Because I remember when it was just a few of us, even daring to say reparations.
That's right.
And our own people were crying us down. I can show you articles in the Jamaica Gleaner when we started advocating. People writing back every week, oh, you're crazy.
That's right.
2 years ago, I said the government should put a reparation tax on the passport of every country that was involved in the transatlantic slave trade when they come to Jamaica. And instead of waiting on these countries to decide to pay compensation on their own, we should begin collecting it. And one comment on the Gleaner's online page, I'll never forget it, it made me laugh. It said, not all crazy people are naked and walking in the street. Because they had a picture of me in a suit. So the comment said, not all crazy. Clever guy, right? Clever. This is an exercise in reparation. And reparation goes beyond compensation. Compensation, don't get me wrong, is due, is needed. We're not giving up on that. But we have to begin to understand the full picture of reparations. And the main picture is not compensation. The main picture is repair. What are the things that we have not fixed, that we need to fix? Which is continuing what Garvey calls mental slavery. So with only 5 minutes to go, what we did was to focus on repairing the colonial narratives. So Mary, quite contrary. How does your garden grow? You know, that was about Mary Queen of Scots and her unhealthy obsession with the French guillotine that had just come out. And she used to chop people's head off. That was the cockle shells. And was teaching our children that. I don't teach my children that anymore. I teach them nanny. Quite uncanny. Where did the red coats go? On bended knees. As if to ease, she shot them all in a row. Now each nursery, prepared nursery, has our story at the end which explains to you the history that we are now embedding. Every Jamaican knows the story of Nanny. The British have recorded the story of people saying that Nanny was an Obia woman. And one eyewitness, British soldier, said he witnessed her either firing bullets or catching bullets with her. What's a YouTube friendly word? Her derriere. Yes. Now, but listen to this. I am marooned from east side of Jamaica, Charlestown, which used to be Nanny Town. And we know the story. The story is when Kojo signed the treaty, Nana refused. And there were several meetings that took place with her before she agreed. At one of those meetings, the British planned to ambush her. The agreement was no weapons, only a certain amount of people. But they lied and planned to capture her. Well, Nana got word of the trap. She didn't hide from the meeting, though. What she did was carry her own pistol. She tied it on a string around her waist. She put on a skirt. And she went to the meeting. So standing up, she's not armed. And no man is going to go under a woman's dress to see if she's armed. So when they sprung the trap on her, she was ready. But she didn't have time to pull out the gun and aim and get it off the string. So she just grabbed the gun. Pop, pop! And hence the story of her firing bullets out of her behind. True story. So that's why we say on bended knees, as if to ease. Jamaicans, when you flatulate, they say you ease your body. Did you ease your body? You ease your body? bended knees as if to ease. She shot them all in a row. So there are about 16 of them we've repaired here. I have some copies here. They're $20 US. Please get one for your child or grandchild. But just to give you a few more examples before I go. Remember Baba Black Sheep? We're not teaching that anymore. No, we repaired Baba Black Sheep. Baba Black Sheep is now Bobo Ashanti. Bobo Ashanti, have you any brooms? Yes, I 3 bags full. One for the prophet and one for the priest, and one for the black king crowned in the east. If you grow up in Jamaica, you know what the Bobo Ashanti look like. We used to see them selling their brooms, long cobweb broom, little broom for your car, other broom to sweep your house. It's their industry. And Rastafari is indigenous to our culture. So before I'm going to teach my children about Mary, Queen of Scots, and London Bridge, that they don't live in London, and the Master and the Day, I would rather teach them our story, our culture, our history. And it even goes back to Africa, right? And there's so many to be repaired. Remember Pussycat, Pussycat, where have you been? I'm not teaching that anymore. We got to repair that. Mine says, Rastaman, Rastaman, where have you been? I've been to Ethiopia to visit the king. Rastaman, Rastaman, what did you wear? My royal robes, red, green, and gold, with a turban around my hair. What's the other one I gave you? I had a little nut tree. That's where that. No good. I had a little herb tree. Nothing would it grow but a silver moringa and a golden thinking toe. The king of Ethiopia came to visit me, and all for the sake of my little herb tree. Now that is a story talking about Rastafarians and how the first African king to visit us came to Jamaica. It was the first poem that the Ministry of Education turned to when I asked them to review the book. And they have to review the book before you can get the schools to use it. They flip quickly to the page. I said, see, I want to stay. Them looking for ganja in the poem and anything. You hear any ganja in there? I said, I had like an herb tree. Nothing would it grow. And you know the line that the children love in that? Golden thinking toe. Anytime you say thinking, love it. So we got to reach them on our frequency. We have to, as Garvey said, be confident in our own culture. We have a history longer than Europe. So why are we regurgitating European nursery rhymes for 300-400 years and still doing it in the 21st century? Come on now. Let me give you one from Africa. Remember a diddle diddle? The cat and the fiddle? I don't know where they come from. And dish run away with spoon? We got rid of that. We changed a diddle diddle to a jinga jinga. Angolan Queen Nzinga. Met a Portuguese governor she greeted. Not a chair would he offer, so her warrior proffered his back for the queen to be seated. If you know the story of Anna Nzinga, when the Portuguese came to meet with her, they set chairs for all the Europeans and they put a mat on the floor for her to sit. This is a queen of the Matambe and Ndebele people. So she must sit on the floor while they sit in the chair above her. She walked into the room, immediately assessed the situation, looked at her soldier who was attending her. He got down on all fours, raised his back up higher than their chairs, and she took a seat. That's what's contained in that nursery rhyme. And I want to teach my children that. Right? I give you one more. Remember Mary had a little lamb? Its feet was white as snow. Coming like the pastor at church. That's why Garvey said in 1924, Jesus was a black man and created the first life-size picture of a black Jesus Harlem had ever seen. Well, we repaired Mary Had a Little Lamb. So, Caldi had a little goat. Anybody know who Caldi is? Caldi is a real folk hero in Ethiopian folklore. He's a young shepherd boy who used to tend to goats. He saw his goats eating the berries from a particular tree. He brought it to the attention of the monks in his village. Ethiopia is a very old Christian country, have a lot of monks and priests. The monks investigated it and started boiling those berries and drinking the juice, and they found that it kept them up. Late at night, they could pray, they could read, they could study. The tree was the coffee tree. It's called coffee because it was discovered in the Kaffa province of Ethiopia. So we repaired, Mary had a little lamb, and turned it into Caldi had a little goat. It would dance to and fro, and everywhere that Caldi went, the goat was sure to go. She followed him to church one day, then she began to lurch. It caused the priest to chant and pray to see a goat at church. And so the bishop turned her out, but still she lingered near and waited patiently about till Caldi did appear. And then she ran to him and laid her head upon his arm, as if she said, I'm not afraid, you'll keep me safe from harm. What makes the goat dance to and fro, the wise Abuna cried. Oh, the berries from the coffee tree, the other monks replied. We too have boiled and drunk its juice when Caldi shined the light. It makes us chant and pray all day, from dawn and through the night. Simple. We're not making up rhymes because they rhyme. We're telling actual stories, and it's important to include our stories from before slavery. My problem with the nursery rhymes as they are now, one, they're not our story, but you know what really gets under me? They were written at the time that our ancestors were being trafficked. It's the same reason why I'm a baptized member of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. My family is Seventh-day Adventist on my mother's side. And I told them, listen, I don't have a problem with Christianity, but any church that participated in the trafficking and enslavement of my ancestors has no right to preach to me about God and morality. I can't stomach it, I can't balance it. You know, Kim said something earlier. I met Kim 2 years ago in Geneva at the UN. And we didn't get along at first because she's a strong black woman. And I'm a Jamaican man. It's just how it goes sometimes, right? But this is our third event together. She's going to be at the New York Symposium in May, and maybe others. I wish we had done that before she went to Vatican, because I'd have tried to get on that trip. We could have seen the Church of Santo Stefano, this Saint Stephen of the Abyssinian. What she said earlier is very important in terms of the role of the church in our Ma'afa. And I'm not talking now about the European churches that participated, but what the church became to us as a people. Remember, the church figures on both sides, you know. You had churches that were participating in the trafficking and slavery, but you also had churches that were used in the Underground Railroad here in this country. Right? But what is interesting, when we started this Global Garvey Symposium series in 2024, it was based on places that Garvey spoke at and on the dates that he spoke. And then we decided, all right, once we start at these places, eventually we're going to put a plaque up there. The first one was done here last year. It's outside. The second one was done last month when Kim did her presentation in Baltimore. And the third one is scheduled to be done soon. Now here's the interesting thing. We call them the ABC plaques, these first three. First one was done here, A because it's Atlanta, and A because it's the AME Church. They welcomed Garvey. He used this platform. The second one we did in Baltimore is the B. B because it's Baltimore, and B because it's a Baptist church. And the third one we're going to do will be in New York that they call the City, and it's at a Catholic church. What does this say about Marcus Garvey? Garvey understood, as Kim said, the role of the church. If he was going to build a mass organization of black people, he couldn't ignore the church. In fact, he made the church his foundation of support across denominations. AME, Baptist, Catholic, the Philadelphia Symposium, which takes place in September, happens at the Ebenezer Seventh-day Adventist Church. Now, granted, it wasn't a Seventh-day Adventist church when Garvey spoke there, but it is now a black Seventh-day Adventist church, and we're working with them. So part of the reasoning behind the Global Garvey Symposium was to tap into that energy, that role the church played, not just in preaching religion, but being a center of activity and collectivity in the black community. And a lot of these churches are closing up because the younger generation is not supporting. And you have major white real estate developers coming in now and buying out these churches after hundreds of years. I pray that never happens here. But I have to share this with you because it's very important that you lend your support. I heard a number of organizations represented in here. This is a staple event on the calendar in Atlanta. We're going to go as long as we can go. Right, Si? Right, Keith? I don't mean tonight, I mean. But we need support. Yes. Right? You've heard the saying, it takes cash to care. But the black church also represents the most successful entity within our community, coming out of slavery, that was able to generate wealth for the community. You know what the other was? Huh? No, not before ganja. They used to call them policy makers. The lotto, numbers game. The numbers game was how black people financed a lot of businesses, right? Until the states realized we were creating wealth for ourselves and they came and gobbled it up, made it illegal. You said ganja is the same thing. As soon as we was making money off it, it became a problem. I told you earlier, part of their objective is to starve us of wealth. Because when they starve us of wealth, we remain on their umbilical cord. So I'm going to close up tonight. Listen, come and get a book. But more than that, support this activity each year. Tell somebody else, tell another group, tell another organization. Reach out to Yvette, reach out to any one of the organizing committees. Ask for your organization to get involved and to participate. We got to grow this from strength to strength. I want bodies in the balconies next year. Make that promise, and we get it done. Thank you all for coming out. Don't get up yet. Rascoolie is going to come up and perform. And for those of you who want to join us at the after gathering, it's right up Jesse Hill Jr. Drive right there. There's one back up at level 3. The owner is a Cameroonian. He's agreed to host us for tonight. So if I don't get a chance to talk to you in the church tonight, come find me at level 3. One God, one aim, one destiny.
It's like they conquering the lion who await in Zion. Embrace men and keep the thing balanced. Build a thing and keep our identification. We don't deal with no discrimination. I man could that never be a AI. What? Nobody said you CIA. Babylon think it's again to them DI. In the rubble, them in trouble with the Most High. Say, rise ye mighty people, once again. Rise up the people, yeah. Rise ye mighty people, here we come again. Yes, I am. I miss it. Wave the flag for the great gathering. Wave the flag for the great gathering. The people. Hear what I say. Watch this right here, son. And them stay seated on the throne in the highest region. Have them in a valley of decision. Systematic, mixed full of ism. The Rasta man don't fill up all the private owned prison. What me say? I and I could never be a puppet. What? Once them said them like it, I don't love it. I see them take the purest thing and then corrupt it. Them use the Bible for them slavery and production. Rise, ye mighty people, once again. I say, rise, ye mighty people, here we come again. Hey, yes, I say, wave the flag of the great gathering, wave the flag of the great gathering, the people. One more time if you catch on to the word. When I say I sight my people, hey, I sight the conquering the lion who are waiting Zion. Embrace men and keep the thing balanced. Build a thing and keep our identity. We not deal with no discrimination. Hey, I man could that never be a AI. Nobody send your CIA. Babylon think it's a game to them DI. In the rumble, them in trouble with the Most High. Say, remember them send the CIA to get my.
This is the Caribbean Telegraph, reflecting the news from home and the diaspora. We bring you credible and responsible journalism. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next time.